Welcome back, Star Wars fans, to Coruscant Radio Underground. I'm Andrew. I'm here with Marisha, and are we actually coming through?
We're coming through.
Okay, cool. Because ever since I did that like 15 minutes of a show when nobody could hear me, I've been a little nervous about it.
There we go. We're there.
All right, so
we're there.
All right, so we are here to talk about Ahsoka.
It's true.
Episode 4.
Yep.
Tell me about it. Not really. Just so, what'd you think? Just overall.
Oh, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was great.
And this is the halfway point. So, I mean, like, how do you feel about the series overall?
Oh, I'm really loving it. I think that we're getting some characters doing some some things that may not have been exactly what we expected or hoped, but that are still in character. And I think we've changed the dynamics again a little bit. We've changed the dynamics of our main character a couple of times now. So I think that it's going really interesting places. So I'm excited to see where it's going to continue to go from here.
Yeah, I think we're doing a lot of interesting things. I think Filoni is kind of staying true to what he does. He's doing a lot of development of the Force lore itself. You know, we're doing a lot of. I mean, at this point, Filoni, I guess, has probably developed more Force lore than Lucas did. But I don't feel like he's betrayed Lucas's Force lore. I think he's continued to expound upon it. And of course, you have all the people that are like, oh, give it back to George. Let George make a movie, because all these people.
Yeah.
Like, did y'all hear George's ideas for a sequel trilogy? Because it was going to be weird and trippy as hell. Like, y'all would not. It's like
midichlorians on steroids.
People would have freaked out. It was, George was sort of transitioning from really kind of in some ways from fantasy to science fiction, and which makes sense. That was George's thing, was science fiction. And I think, we winded up kept telling really what's more of a fantasy story in space, and Filoni's roots are fantasy. From his love of Narnia, of Tolkien's works, working on The Last Airbender. I don't think working on King of the Hill counts. But
probably not so much.
But we did get some pocket sand action in this episode, so
it's true.
Before we go any further, I say hello to everybody in the chat. I see Ro and DJ and Nick. I think are the ones that are in here so far. Marisha, you're here though, so you don't count. I don't have to welcome you to the chat, do I?
Well, you could. You're supposed to love me.
I do. But I mean, if you're not nice, I'll put that.
If you're not nice, I'll leave.
So there was a comment. What was the comment you were wanting to pull up here? Was it this?
Oh yeah, I think yeah.
So Nick says this was a great episode, but I feel like next week will really change how this episode is viewed in retrospect, as we don't know what everything means. Yeah, I agree. I mean, at this point, I think the only person that fully understands what the World Between Worlds is Dave. He hasn't finished telling us what it's all about yet.
Right.
And he's going to. I feel like he's going to continue building the lore. And I also kind of love that the World Between Worlds is really kind of well, it's kind of a C.S. Lewis reference.
Yeah, absolutely. The kids were like, the wood between worlds?
Yeah, it's this place you go to like travel into all these other realities.
Yep.
So I mean, it's not even like subtle. It's
no, not even. And it's really interesting because several, like, this isn't the only franchise that has really tapped into that wood between worlds kind of thing. They went on that at some length on The Magicians, I think. Like, it was kind of a the author literally wanted to use Wood Between Worlds, but they were like, no, the Tolkien estate will sue you to oblivion.
Yeah.
You must do something different.
I also think, Nick's also right. And Isaac, welcome to the chat. But I think that it's very much, each episode kind of changes your perspective on the previous episode. And I think that's kind of because these are short and we're not telling serialized episodic stories like Rebels and Clone Wars. I mean, we did have arcs, but those arcs were still serialized.
Yes.
And so you get a 3 or 4 episode arc and then you go off on another adventure, and they kind of loosely tie together and eventually build this full story. But one episode doesn't have to have anything to do with the next. Clone Wars even more so.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
And so, yeah, I mean, these are, I've said it all along, and I do have mixed feelings on it, but I guess it's still the most logical way to handle short series, 6 episodes, 8 episodes, even, 10, 12 episodes. Is it really all kind of, it's like a movie, a really long movie that's chopped up into episodes.
Yeah.
And so, it's hard to fully judge it. Like, I love where this episode went. He could do something totally off the wall in next week's episode that just makes me go, okay, I'm lost. I don't get it. I don't know.
Rose said earlier, it's getting ready to get weird and trippy, and he may definitely be right.
No. Oh, I mean, I think we've already gotten fairly trippy, but I think this next episode, what do you think about showing it? They're showing it in, it's only like maybe like 7 or 8 theaters. It's not many. Do you think it's because something, a lot of people are saying, oh, it's because something really big and earth shattering that's going to change Star Wars forever is happening? Or is it just a promotional tactic?
It is definitely a promotional tactic, but I think there's a reason why it's this episode. I think that they feel like something's going to be
the second half. And it's like, maybe there's something in this episode that's just going to be really cool to see on the big screen.
Yeah.
But if that's it, why not more theaters? You're only limiting this to really a few hundred people that are going to be able to see it.
Yeah. I don't know. It seems a little weird, but.
So, I mean, I don't know what the general capacity of a typical AMC theater is, but they're not huge.
Yeah.
There's theaters are smaller, they hold less people than they used to be. That's kind of with the modernizing of the seating and everything, and they just don't hold as many people.
Right.
So I don't know. I still think it's mostly a promotional tactic. I think it's because it's the second half. I think it's because they don't have actors able to do any promotional stuff. I think if it was really like, oh, you just have to see this in theaters.
Right.
I mean, there's only maybe, it was like seriously not more than like 7 or 8 episodes or theaters that were showing it.
Yeah.
Which, if you took the Southeastern United States, one location.
Yeah.
And it was in Orlando, which really isn't even a Southern location.
Filoni directed episode is a free fan. I mean, if it is a free fan,
yes, it is a free event.
That's
it was free. You just had to, you just had to be the first to claim a ticket.
Right.
Yeah. So I think it's cool, but I mean, it brings up the question, like, when this is all over with, if it turns out, if it continues the direction it's going, I'd love to see the whole thing in theaters.
Yeah.
Well, Rosario Dawson better be careful talking about struck material.
Yeah. Maybe she said that before.
She could have said that. I mean, she could have said that a month ago, 2 months ago, 3 months ago. Who knows?
They've been on strike forever.
Yeah, it's been a while. Andrew has joined the chat, so welcome. I think Andrew's one. So if you're not in our Discord, if you don't have a link or in a Discord, ask for one, and I'll send you one later. Check us out over on Twitter, and I'll send it if you want to get in there. We are the kids. We're bringing the Padawan report back, and we are going to start this coming week reading through The Hobbit.
That's
awesome. Be the kids' first read through. I'll read it with Elijah. The girls will read it on their own, and then we're going to get together and talk about it on Fridays or Saturdays, but we've got several people, including Andrew, who is going to read along with us and be able to ask the kids questions ahead of our recordings.
That's cool.
So that's going to be fun. And the Padawans have been wanting to get back on. So this will be something really fun to do with them and a little more interactive than what we've done in the past.
Yeah. Give them something to do besides play on their devices.
Yeah.
Padawans need something.
Let's see. So Nick says, I've seen people upset and happy over extreme interpretation of this episode. Like people believe Anakin will step through world between worlds and be alive again. I don't think that's where we're going. I mean, we're going to get into the theories on, it'd probably be most of the second half of this episode, talking about the world between worlds, because I think there's a lot to unpack there. And personally, I'm not sure that's Anakin.
Ooh.
I think something a little more mystical is going on.
More mystical than Force ghosts?
So yeah, I mean, we've seen times where, so I'll just kind of give a hint to where I'm going with it. We saw when Kanan was knighted, right? When Kanan fights the temple guard, turns out to be the Grand Inquisitor. Okay. When he's knighted, Luke's moment in the tree on Dagobah.
Yeah.
I think this might be her trials.
It doesn't look like it. It definitely looks like there's some. He looks a little strange, like he's been run through a computer generator.
Yeah, no, I mean they definitely de-aged him,
but they didn't do that for the flashback scene in Kenobi.
Yeah, no, it's different. Different directors, different filmmakers.
I mean, that's true.
It could have just been a personal choice.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of in the camp right now of maybe he doesn't look quite right because something's not quite right.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I'm thank you, Megan, and welcome to the chat. I am feeling better, but man, I had a rough night last night. So if I just like drift off into like weird, crazy ramblings, Marisha will try to bring me back.
We're pretty tired too. We'll see how this goes.
But yeah, I mean, it looks better than some of the de-aging stuff that's happened. I mean, the de-aging, so it looks a little off. It still looks better than Leia in Rogue One. It still looks better than some of the de-aging stuff we've done. It's off. I'm kind of still leaning towards it might have been a little off for a reason.
Yeah, I think Nick is right. He looks a little more like animated Anakin.
And that could have been intentional too. They could have been a little blending of the facial features or something that just threw it off. I don't know. I'm not sure what it is, but we're going to get into some very wacky theories on the world between worlds here in a little bit.
Yeah.
So let's just kind of work our way through the episode.
Since we started at the end.
It was going to go there. And there's some points along the way that are worth discussing. But again, I think the interesting part of this episode, as far as like the mysterious things that we need to talk about, all happen at the end.
Right.
No. Yeah. So, I mean, like Dave insists that this isn't really a time travel mechanism, that the world between worlds is not really a time travel mechanism. So,
right.
It's really a question. And again, I don't believe he's going to leave us hanging. I think he's going to continue developing this lore. In fact, he kind of talked at one point about this was a closed chapter. So for him to have reopened it, I think he's got something very, very specific in mind. So I do think we'll get good explanations as we go. And I think episode 5 is going to be, I think it's going to be weird. I think it's going to be like Mortis weird.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm down with that. I enjoyed Mortis.
I did too, but it was one of those that some people just checked out on. And I get it. It's more fantastical than Star
Yeah.
Wars has always been this blend of fantasy and science fiction, and
Mhm.
it's kind of where it goes. Okay, no more science fiction here for a minute.
Mhm.
We're going all in on the religion.
Right. Yeah.
So, um, so just to open up, I mean, what did you think about the first fight scene at the ship? You know, we see Hu Yang can
Mhm.
actually throw hands a little bit,
Yeah,
which was kind of cool.
which was
Such a
surprising.
cool droid. Like
Yeah,
the
he really is.
details on the droid are so cool. The eye slits,
Mhm.
where he has the expressive eye
Uh-huh.
slits, is very very cool.
Yeah.
Um, I'm really digging that, and of course the voice work on it. It's just an interesting character.
Yeah.
I'm really glad they brought that character back and have really fleshed him out, because I mean that character was not real fleshed out before, so this was a good place to do it. And having a good Star Wars droid's always a plus.
Yes. Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
so I think kind of to talk one thing that I don't get into a lot. I'll be curious tomorrow night to see what Roe thought about this. I don't normally complain about this, but the first fight, so it was cool. I love the Mandalorian Jedi fighting combination, because it's always interesting, because
Mhm.
when they're fighting together, they complement each other very, very well.
Right.
You know, because we always have to remember that Mandalorian weapons and fighting technique were really built to mimic,
Mhm.
both to mimic and to combat Jedi. So
Right.
when they work together,
Mhm.
they're always this really interesting dynamic together, because
Mhm.
they're the meets West combination, right? So they're,
Right.
when you go back to the samurai films and stuff, the Jedi are definitely the samurai, and the Mandalorians are the cowboys. Like,
Yeah.
so it's this really cool dynamic, especially when they work together.
Mhm.
But so I like some of the things, but I felt like this was the most visible the volume has been in the whole series so far. I felt like they were really, I don't know, it feels like they're fighting in a bubble.
Mhm.
What did you think about it?
Um, and it was fine. I didn't really think that there was anything particularly just riveting about that first fight. We did get to see Hu Yang, you know, fight a little bit, which was kind of interesting, but it was mostly just like, okay, and they have a fight. You
Mhm.
feel like it was scripted as they fight, you
Yeah.
know.
So there are a few things. I think the most important thing that probably happens, there's two moments that really occur after the fight's over. The fight's fun. It's cool. I love the planet. Cetos is a really, really cool planet. It's got this really kind of weird, foggy, ethereal feel
Mhm.
to it, but the foliage of everything is red,
Mhm.
which kind of harkens back to both Dathomir and Mortis,
Mhm.
with the red foliage on the trees. And so it's, it's a mystical place, and they're definitely giving that to us
Mhm.
visually.
Yeah.
But um, Hu Yang asks them to stay together,
Mhm.
which they don't do.
Right.
But then there's the other. This comes into play, and you don't think anything about it really at the time, but it comes into play at the end of the episode. Is Ahsoka looks at Sabine and says, "Can I count on you?"
Mhm.
And it's something's going on with Ahsoka. There's something off. I made the argument back when we first started this episode, or this season rather.
Mhm.
When we see Ahsoka, we see the mirror scene where she's picking up Sabine on Lothal,
Mhm.
but she's not in the white robe. She's in the darker robes, and it's like something's lost. There's some hope that's lost. There's mistrust. There's
Mhm.
and I think the comparison to, Balin, we're gonna get into Balin in a minute. Still a really cool character. Um, I'm really, really digging that character. I wish we could see more.
Mhm.
But I think that, his whole thing about, we're not Jedi,
Mhm.
but he's still clinging to a lot of very Jedi ideals,
Mhm.
honor and things like that. We see that at the end of the episode when he keeps his word to Sabine. and but he's drifted, and we don't know when he left, and I don't know if we're going to find out when he left the Jedi or why he left the Jedi and what caused him to drift away from his ideals. But I think that Ahsoka is on the same path. I think that's the challenge to Ahsoka here is like, how far can you drift away from your ideals and still remain you?
Yeah.
Like, how far before you drift into the darkness?
Yeah.
And I think, because we're gonna talk about it in a minute, but we see some things from Ahsoka in that fight, that I don't know. I kind of, we're gonna see some things later. Sorry, I got distracted by the chat.
Yeah, it's fine.
But yeah, I'm curious to see. I still think that is where the comparison here is how far he has fallen, and is Ahsoka on the same path?
Yeah. I mean,
well, is Ahsoka on the same path leading up to the moment we leave this episode? Because I think this might be her. I think this is her decision point.
Yeah.
Whatever's fixing to happen in the world between worlds is where she's going to have to make a decision.
Yeah.
About who she is and what she really believes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and the thing is about making good decisions and making good life choices is, it's not just a decision that you make one time and then you're set forever. Like, you know, she's a clearly light side character. You know, she's got the Mortis owl, and she's got all the things going on that she's clearly the light side character.
She is, but we've seen her more and more willing to do things that cross the line.
Right, but that's what I'm saying is that just because, you know, because my initial thought was like, oh no, you know, not Ahsoka, because she's good. Like, she's always been presented that way, but it's not really that simple, is it?
No, it's about, you know, deciding that you don't believe these things anymore that have been the core of your being. You know, this is not just, you know, she was a member of this religious order. Like, this is their life.
Right.
And now she's, you know, so it's betraying those ideals over and over and over again. And how many times can you do it before it changes you completely?
Right. Yeah.
Like, it's a slow descent into darkness. It's not, you know, a flip of a switch. You know, we even see that it's more hurried with Anakin because in the movies, because we see it in 3 movies. But when you look at the Clone Wars, we see it play out over years of a TV show where we see him willing to cross lines over and over and over again.
What is that?
It's somebody moving a trash can. It is. You want me to yell at John, tell him to quit moving trash can? Let's see. I think we're playing with the concept of fate here. She's back in the world between worlds, and Anakin shows up. I feel this is a sort of a trial to teach her, no matter what choices she makes or made, her fate is sealed. That's similar to where I'm going, but I think that I don't think it's a sealed fate as much as it's one of her. I think the whole pull to the light or dark is a matter of a decision. So, you know, and you can argue, I mean, you know, I think you can argue that it's still destiny or fate.
Yeah, fated or chosen, that's a age-old question, you know.
But so, I mean, cool things in the episode, you know, we get the fulcrum. She's still using the fulcrum call sign, which is really a callback. Everybody goes back, oh, that was her call sign in Rebels, but really that was Anakin's his private subspace frequency during the Clone Wars. Is what fulcrum was. So it's cool to see her still using that. Maybe a little hint that, you know, we're going to still get something of Anakin. The title of the episode, Fallen Jedi.
Right.
What do you? I mean, who do you think it's referring to?
I think the obvious answer is Balin. I mean, he's clearly.
But isn't Ahsoka a fallen Jedi as well?
I mean, I think that there are several potential candidates for. I mean, she literally falls like in combat.
That's hilarious, Ray. Rose says the garbage sound is a good omen. We had a dude drag a trash can across our podcast days during the very first ScarifCon. That's fantastic.
That's
so hopefully the trash can that was just dragged down the driveway next door wasn't audible on the microphones, but it was definitely audible in here.
Yeah, very, very audible. I mean,
I think
in a very
Balin,
literal sense, she falls over the cliff. She's fallen. She's a casualty. That's what that's the line for a casualty of war.
Yeah.
Eagle has fallen.
Right. I mean, it's got, and that's the thing is like a lot of this stuff has multiple meanings. But yeah, I mean, I think it's got a very literal meaning, but at the same time, like she already fell as a Jedi. Like,
right.
She hasn't been a Jedi
I
for
don't think
quite some time.
I don't know that I would say that she fell as a Jedi. I mean, she left, but she didn't.
But the Jedi considered her a fallen Jedi.
She left the order. She didn't leave the faith.
I think you can argue that she has, though, over time. That's the I think that's the problem. I mean, I think that's the argument that I'm making is that.
I mean, weren't the Jedi's kind of the quintessential end justifies the means during the Clone Wars? So wasn't that kind of their hallmark? So in some ways, it seems like she's becoming more like them than she even was before.
Yeah, maybe.
In some ways, maybe becoming a little bit of what she left to get away from.
Maybe. That could be it.
I don't know. Lots of. I think it's very lots of implications.
Yeah.
Poor Chopper. I like Chopper. I get a kick out of Chopper because they're very excited to see Chopper.
Now, speaking to the line to what you're talking about, Ahsoka says, we have a decision to make here. Like, if we can't be the ones that go, then maybe nobody should go. But I mean, is that what you're talking about with ends justify the means?
Well, I mean, she kind of has been saying that, I'm trying to remember. I have it confused with a line that somebody pulled out in a different franchise, but basically, you have to do what you have to do, even if it seems wrong. That's kind of what she was getting at.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's still a lot of questions up in the air here, and I think we're going to get answers to them in this fifth episode. We get a good look at the New Republic fleet again. Lots of old familiar ships, Nebulon B frigates, Home One, X-wings. I love the use of the sounds from the original trilogy with the X-wings and stuff. They sound incredible. I want to see more fleet stuff. Honestly, like they just look so good.
Yeah, they really, and I think everyone commented on that shot. Whenever they all go into hyperspace, with the ghost in the middle, and then excellent question. Hashtag, where the hell is Zeb?
I mean, I think they're dragging out. First of all, Zeb is a Y-wing pilot.
Okay.
I think they're kind of dragging out the getting the band back together thing.
Yeah.
I don't,
But I mean, Carson, Teva is there, so.
Well, I think part of that is that I think Carson knows that they're kind of on a mission here that they may all get in a little bit of trouble for.
Yeah, if they come back.
So, I think Carson has seen the workings of the New Republic up close, and he doesn't have any faith in it. That's
Yeah.
why he makes the deal with Mando at the end of Mandalorian season 3.
Right.
So I'm not surprised that we see Carson and some of the Adelphi Rangers. I think that's why. I think that he's kind of the leader of that group, and that's one of the things we should be seeing. Like, if we're going to stay even sort of in line with the books, this is the same realization around the same time that Leia should be coming to, that this isn't working, that this is going to end poorly, and we need to be ready.
Yeah.
So it makes sense to have other people starting to drift that direction. The Ghost looks fantastic. We finally got to see it in live action, like fully. I mean, we got to see it very, very briefly in, I guess, in Rise of Skywalker, like just a shot. It actually looks better here. That scene in Rise of Skywalker was a little kind of overbloated with. It was just like they just said, find every ship that's ever been in Star Wars and throw it on the screen.
Yeah.
I think we will be getting at least a little more Night Sisters lore, because I think that maybe there's some sort of connection between the Night Sisters and whatever is happening, whoever is in this other galaxy, whether it be the Zepho or the Qua or whoever it winds up being. The Qua shared a home planet of Dathomir with the Night Sisters, and so I don't know, but it's maybe the Night Sisters are an ancient ancestor of the Night Sisters or the Dathomirians. Maybe they were from this other galaxy.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why their connection to the Force is different than what we've seen. Although, we get these Night Sister magic is shown with green, right? So we get green. Sith use a bluish magic. We see Palpatine and
Force lightning.
Well, the Force lightning, but also when he attacks Ezra in the World Between Worlds, he's conjuring a blue magic very similar to what we see the Night Sisters use. So I don't know. I think we will get some additional Night Sister lore here. I don't know how much, because I don't know how important it is to the story.
Yeah.
But
they're such interesting.
No, they're definitely interesting.
They're such interesting characters.
Right. And I think at some point we will continue to get little bits of that. But I don't know how soon. I mean, we've been getting, Night Sisters go all the way back to the really the origins of that goes all the way back to the Courtship of Princess Leia book.
Okay.
So I mean, like, we've been getting most of the Night Sister lore was written directly by Dave Filoni.
Yeah.
But we've been getting that stuff way, way back. Let's see. So Hera brings Jason on the mission. Poor parenting.
I mean, what else is she going to do with them?
Well, so yeah, I know a lot of people. I want to know what the chat
on a
thought
military base,
right?
With who?
Well, it's not just that. Like, leave him with people she no longer fully trusts.
Right.
Leave him on a place where she might not be allowed to come back.
Yeah. And leaving them with people who could use him as leverage against her.
Yeah. Also, he grew up, fighting, he grew up in the middle of a war. Like, we're gonna say, oh no, he shouldn't be there, but
yeah. Families are on the Enterprise. You're right, Joe.
Not Joe.
I'm aware.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's true. Like, I don't. It didn't bother me at all. Like, I just felt like that was kind of normal, but I kind of also feel like she's leaving pretty sure she's not going to be welcome back. And people got real upset about the line, when she's like, well, when you're general, then you can disobey orders. And I think that's people are like, oh, you can't disobey orders just because you're a general. I was like, well, in the Republic Army, in the Rebel Army, they kind of could, but because they weren't anybody to answer to. But I don't think that's any different than being like, when your kid's like, why can you do this and I can't? It's like, because I'm an adult. And when you're an adult, you can make bad decisions. Like, I mean,
why do I have to go to bed while you stay up and watch TV and eat ice cream?
Or eat a steak.
Eat a steak. Which I'm eating again tonight, by the way.
I'm not.
No, I'm eating spaghetti because I'm sweet.
So we get the second fight. The second fight I felt was way better than the first.
Mm-hmm.
It feels a little more. The fight. I didn't mind the first fight. To be clear, I felt like it was. I felt like the environment was all in the background. And in the second fight, I feel more like they're in the environment. So
yeah,
that was better. What did you think about the second fight?
I really don't love that pose that she with her leg up on the thing from the trailer. I thought it looked goofy in the trailer, and I thought it looked goofy in the shot. But other than that,
are you talking about the fight with Balin?
Yes.
Okay, because we're not there yet.
Oh, okay.
We're talking about the fight with Merrick and Shin.
Oh, yeah.
Say no.
All right. We can say no to sports ball.
The second fight, no, the one in the woods.
Okay, yeah, no, I thought that one was good. And I think we got our answer on Merrick. I think he was just a cool looking character who was.
What do you think Merrick was?
Something.
Was he
unnatural?
Undead? Was he an undead creation? Or was he we've seen them resurrect Night Brothers.
Mm-hmm. They always seemed a little zombie-ish before.
Sort of, yeah. But so actually, that was kind of my theory initially, was that it was just a reanimated corpse of an Inquisitor.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, now I'm leaning more towards he was an Inquisitor that's been bewitched. Because I did go back and I found the scene where a kind of bewitched Savage Opress is, who's been, endowed with Night Sister magic. And he becomes more powerful, which would explain why this guy was able to hang with Ahsoka. Also why we only really see him maybe use the Force once, but like why he's still able to just kind of hang in this fight. And we also see when Savage Opress dies, we see that green, mist or whatever escape from his body. So I'm leaning more towards, because the idea of reanimating a corpse and it being able to use the Force.
Yeah, just
so
creepy.
I'm still going to lean more towards this as actually a former Inquisitor that's under the power of Morgan Elsbeth.
Yeah. So Nick thinks we haven't seen the last of Merrick because that isn't how Inquisitors look when they die. And I don't think we've seen anybody die like that before.
No, not exactly like that, but it is way, way more similar to the way Savage Opress dies than anything else.
Yeah.
It is similar to the way the kind of the zombies, the reanimated corpses die in the video games, but I'm still leaning more towards it was someone under her control.
Yeah, it was like somebody just like popped the balloon. It was
so the fights are a little different. Ahsoka only uses one saber against Merrick, which one she's not concerned about fighting him, I guess.
Yeah.
but the other is these are way more samurai Kurosawa style fights. I think when you go by, so I see they're talking in the chat about the fights being slow. I didn't think they felt slow and clunky. I felt like they were pulled right out of a Kurosawa film. When you talk about the prequels, George got a little carried away in the prequels. Like some of the fights in the prequels look real good, and some of them they look like totally weightless animated characters. The flying through the air, and it's like, sure, do some of that, but you got to make it look like the characters actually have weight. So I actually prefer this. I think this pulls back more like Nick says, these feel more like the original trilogy fights. I think for the most part, I think the second fight and the third fight in this episode are some of the best lightsaber duels we've gotten since the original trilogy, frankly.
I do feel like Ahsoka and Balin are really, it's more of a chess match than a fight.
Yes, it is.
And like they're back up and they're really sizing each other up. They're thinking.
There's a lot of that. There's also, people complain about the fights in the original trilogy, especially the Obi-Wan Anakin fight or Vader fight.
Yeah.
In the first movie. It's like, it's a little slow and clunky, but when you go back and look at those fights, even Luke's fight with Vader in Return of the Jedi is almost more about the conversation that's occurring during the fight than the fight itself.
Yeah.
And I felt like this one, that's the same thing. This one is really Balin trying to push all of her buttons. And he's winning. It's working.
Yeah.
He gets an emotional response.
Right, exactly. Which is what he's going for now. I don't know, Nick. I sure like me some dueling fates. And maybe not all of them, but
So I think my argument here would be that one, I don't think the Sabine Shin fight is supposed to look perfect. It's two Padawans squaring off, and one of them starts the fight with her pistols.
Right.
So I don't think that one. I think that one's meant to be a little clumsy. I love the use of the wrist rockets. In lieu of the Force.
Right.
As far as the faster, like I don't mind faster. I'd love to see, but that has to be the right kind of fight. Like it has to be the right situation for that fight to work. I would love to see some stuff like that, but I feel like these were more meaningful moments because of the conversational part of the fight, the sort of emotional chess match.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I like a lot of the fights in the prequels, but the best lightsaber fight in all of Star Wars is Luke versus Vader in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
But it's because of the emotional weight and the putting it next to this incredible space battle.
Right. Yeah.
Like it's a lot of other things. I still feel like sometimes the prequels were just the result of no one being able to tell George no.
Yeah.
Like there was nothing reining him in at all. And don't get me wrong, I love the prequels. I've been a prequel defender since the beginning. So
yeah.
But I do think the fights could get a little animated at times because they were. That's what they were.
Yeah.
Let's see. So
at least they didn't have spinny Inquisitor lightsabers and Revenge of the Sith.
I'm just glad that no Inquisitors went flying.
Oh, I would not have been happy if that would have happened. One of my least favorite things Star Wars has ever done was those stupid helicopter lightsabers. So dumb.
So we get that fight. I enjoyed the fights. Again, I felt like it was right out of a Kurosawa film.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that they definitely weren't all, they all had their moments. And I think they all had, at least a second of like, really?
They're better than any of the fights in the sequel trilogy.
But, well, I mean, that's not what fights in the sequel trilogy.
Any of them. Well, everybody raves again about that throne room fight.
Yeah.
In The Last Jedi, but like that one's so clumsily choreographed, they literally had to delete weapons out of people's hands to make it work.
Right. That's fun. Okay, nobody else hates the flying lightsabers. I just hate them. I just do.
I don't know.
The physics. How do lasers create upward thrust?
The Force.
Their force abilities suck. That's why they have super spinny sabers. Which, by the way, is an alliteration I will be using in reference to this from now on. Super spinny sabers. Mm-hmm. It's my new line.
So what do you think when we get to that final fight, with the kind of the jabs that Balin is taking at Ahsoka?
He's very well informed, isn't he?
He's either very well informed or he's strong enough to just get a really strong read off of them.
Mm-hmm.
It could be both.
Yeah, I mean, either way, he's well informed. Wherever he's getting his information, it's very good, and it is not common knowledge.
Right.
There are probably a half a dozen people in the galaxy at this point who know that Anakin Skywalker.
No. At this point, everybody knows that Anakin's Darth Vader.
Oh, is that out? The cat's out of that bag.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's public knowledge at this point. Well, this is 9 years after Yavin, so we're like 5 years after Return of the Jedi. All that came out in the years right after Jedi. So the fact that Anakin became Darth Vader is fairly public knowledge at this point.
Okay. Well, that makes more sense then.
Yeah. But the knowledge of, so he's playing on her because Ahsoka has felt guilt that her leaving was what led to Anakin's downfall. Because she was always kind of, when we look back at Clone Wars, she was kind of always the one person that could kind of call him back.
And you see when he makes the worst calls that she's not there.
Right.
When he kills Dooku, she's not there.
Yeah.
And that's basically, the Palpatine is always a devil on one shoulder, and Anakin's, Ahsoka is the angel on the other one. Whenever she's not there, then he's just pretty susceptible.
Right. But I mean, he's really playing hard on her emotions about. And I think this is the thing she's been running from, right? For years. I think this is the kind of the linchpin moment that has led her to where she's at. That has led her to keep drifting further away from the ideals of the Jedi.
Yeah.
And we see, like, she has a moment here. One, we see a little anger in the fighting. We really see it when Shin shows up and she thinks Sabine is dead. And she, lashes out in rage and throws Shin into one of the stones. And it's those emotional responses, and then the emotional response when Sabine does show up that takes her off her guard. So we're seeing her start making mistakes because she's lost her way.
Right. Yeah, I think that's, and she's always, she's always been do as I say. And you get, she spends a lot of time telling, Sabine, you have to stay centered and you have to, ignore your this and your that, and you have to do all the things. But do as I say, not as I do, I guess.
Right. Yep. So Sabine shows up. Ahsoka taken completely off her guard, knocked off the cliff.
Mm-hmm.
And then he immediately, so what we're seeing from Balin is, we know he's not a Sith, first of all. He's a fallen Jedi. He's, I guess, what would have been a dark Jedi in some of the older games, Knights of the Old Republic and stuff, where he's still following some of the ideals of the Jedi Order. He's not a Sith religiously. It says you don't fall from a Jedi and become a Sith necessarily. Like, they're two, diametrically opposed religions.
Right. Like, you don't have, if you quit being a Christian doesn't mean you become a Satanist.
Right.
There are lots of other places to stop off in the middle.
Yeah. So he's, so what he is and where he is, but we see that when he starts talking to Sabine, first thing he does is he deactivates his lightsaber and puts it back on its clip. Like, he's going to, he has another plan, but he stays very emotionally centered.
And he's very confident that he can talk her down.
Yeah. But I mean, at this moment, like, of the people who are maintaining more of the centeredness of a Jedi, it's Balin. And we still don't fully know what his intentions are.
Right.
He intends to basically, bring Thrawn back, start a war to burn everything down to build something new.
Right.
But yeah, what do you think about what he tells Sabine? Because we get a little hint. We've wondered what happened to Sabine's family.
Right.
So, well, first he hits her with the, your master didn't trust you, which we had just a few minutes previous. Ahsoka asks Sabine, "Can I count on you?"
Right.
So it's like, and she reacts, of course you can. Like, why would you ask me that? And then he says, basically, if she had trusted you, you could have saved your family. It's like, what happened? Like,
right.
Did Ahsoka stop her from going to protect her, or because she was afraid that Sabine would die if she went, or
right. It does beg a lot of questions.
Yeah. So something really, I mean, because we know something really uncomfortable happened between Sabine and Ahsoka, and now I think we know what it was now.
Yeah.
And these are two characters, like, even if you go back to Rebels, these are two characters who really didn't jive well.
Yeah.
Sabine makes the decision. She hands over, and at that point, like, nobody's surprised that Sabine is handing over the map. One, it took the lightsaber a minute to destroy it. I'm not sure the pistol could have.
Right.
But at this point, like, so do you think Sabine is crossing the line towards the dark side?
I mean,
or is this just a moment of, like, what? This is now the only option. Like, I just watched Ahsoka fall to her death. This is now the only option I have to go find Ezra.
I think that, I mean,
it is a moment of weakness.
Yeah, it is. I mean, she's not committing atrocities.
Right.
And I think she thinks she can go along and turn the tables because she's eminently confident that way.
Right.
In spite of the fact that they keep kicking her butt. And maybe she doesn't 100% have a plan at this point, but she's just going to figure it out on the way.
Yeah. So, After that, Harry. So we do get a moment. We get a little aside at this moment. Sabine is basically surrendered. Balin stays true to his word. He doesn't let Shin kill Sabine, which he has every intention of doing.
Which was surprising.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, he's not.
He's got a code.
He still lives by code. He's not your typical dark side, purely emotional response villain. He's different. He's more complex than that. So Hera and her squadron show up just in time to watch the Eye of Sion. Speaking of, they're doing like the space shots look so good.
Yeah, they really do.
The Eye of Sion coming up through the clouds, back into space just looks incredible.
Yeah,
There's a mosquito in here. So Hera and them show up really to no point. Like, the Eye of Sion leaves on hyperspace very, very quickly, leaves awake like we've never seen through real space as it enters hyperspace. Kills 3. There's 5 X-wings with them.
Yeah,
and kills, or we presume killed 3 of them, and definitely destroyed the X-wings. So, I mean,
yeah, like, from a story point, it's like, well, but why are they even there? And I guess that's because presumably Hera's getting ready to go down and find Ahsoka.
Possibly. I think they're there for a reason. We don't know what it is yet. And that's where we're going to kind of get in, and we've actually gone a little longer than I thought. There's just a lot in this episode. So we do get the moment. A lot of people kind of got weird about this moment too, where Jason says, I have a bad feeling, which of course, harkens back to all the times people have said, I've got a bad feeling about this. But he stops at, I've got a bad feeling, the first part of the phrase. And I think we're just seeing like his connection to the Force, and he just experienced death. Well, is he getting the feeling? There's several things that could be happening here. Is he feeling a disturbance from the death that just happened around him, or because of what is playing out? What is playing out around them with the villains completing their first task of reaching this other galaxy, or is he feeling what's happening to Ahsoka?
Right. I don't know.
But
yeah, it didn't bother me. It definitely bothered some people, but I wasn't one of them.
I mean, I'm not. People were like, well, of course you've got a bad feeling. Things happen. It's like, no, but he's feeling things maybe for the first time in his life. His connection to the Force. So we get this absolutely incredible transition from water to the world between worlds. How do you think she got there?
I mean,
hey, Amanda, welcome to the chat.
I don't know, because I think that, the indication I think is definitely that she's dead or unconscious, and she's, in the astral plane,
Yeah.
Basically. Especially whenever Anakin says, I didn't expect to see you so soon. So that definitely kind of gives the vibe that if she's not dead, she's at least teetering right there on the brink.
Okay. So you think this is a sort of a moving towards the afterlife thing?
Yeah.
Maybe, a purgatory kind of place and something between life and death.
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's,
Yeah, I think
there's going to be a door that she can go through or not, or at least whatever the Star Wars equivalent is going to be.
Yeah. So I think that's one of the things I have down here is one of the things I see as a possibility that she's died. And of course, there are things here. So Ahsoka's life force, Ahsoka died once before. in the Mortis arc.
Yeah.
And she is basically imbued with the life force of the daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Imbued with the life force of a force god, essentially.
Right.
So, like, her dying could be different than someone else dying.
Yeah.
We don't really know what that would even entail. I think that's possible.
Mm-hmm.
See, I think that's one of the other possibilities.
Yeah, I think
Nick.
that's
Well,
very
see,
possible.
I don't think that's what's happening here, but I wouldn't rule it out as a possibility.
Yeah.
It's a very, very good theory.
Mm-hmm.
So did she die?
Yeah.
Did someone pull her through?
Right.
Weird thing, we haven't actually seen Morai,
Ah.
the convor. Like,
Yeah.
this is we forget that the Morai has the ability to travel the world between worlds.
Yeah.
It's the first thing when Ezra, we now have 3 creatures
Mm-hmm.
that we know have a strong connection to the Force. The convors,
Mm-hmm.
which is the Force owls,
Yes.
the Loth wolves, and the Purgle.
Mm-hmm.
All have really, really strong connections to the Force. Not just a strong connection to the Force, but a apparent ability to travel. So I think we're kind of moving towards the world between worlds. The Force and hyperspace are all very, very closely related, or possibly even more or less the same thing.
I mean, yeah, I think that's a well, we've had conversations in some of the newer Thrawn books that
Hey, Michelle. Thanks for joining.
Hey, how's it going? I think that there have been conversations that the navigators, the force sensitive navigators on Chiss vessels are,
Yep.
They call them Skywalkers.
Right. I want to point this out real quick. Anakin's mechanical hand. So basically, if you go back and look at it, he is appearing to her exactly as she last saw him. This is the exact version of Anakin, clothes, lightsaber, everything that he had when they talked the very last time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I do think
interesting.
So yeah, it's oh, Michelle liked the episode. Yeah, I saw you posted a review. I've got to go watch that. So yeah, it's kind of this question of what's happening, and we're gonna kind of get into some weird world between world stuff. I don't want to go like super deep into it, because at this point, really, Filoni's the only one that really knows where that's headed.
Right.
It's not established lore. This is new lore. But I love the way you can tell, if you're familiar with C.S. Lewis and familiar with Tolkien, you can see where he is constantly drawing from that well. I think the other possibility was one, that she was either pulled into the world between worlds. We know that was a portal similar to.
Yeah.
So did she somehow open the portal when she grabbed the orb off the stand?
Ooh. Yeah.
And then fell through it? Was she pulled in? Is it like Nick said? Is it a vision? I think that there's a possibility that she's there, but it's that Anakin's a vision. I said this at the top of the show. I think that we may see her challenged by. I'm not sure this is Anakin. I'm not sure. It could be an apparition.
Yeah.
It could be the brother. I know that the brother theoretically died in the Mortis arc, but
did the brother die too?
Anakin's like strikes down the brother, but like, there's an argument to be made that just like the daughter lived on through Ahsoka, perhaps the brother lived on through Anakin.
I thought that he was supposed to be the balance. He was supposed to be the
Well, he
father
was supposed to
figure.
be, but he rejected it.
Yeah.
And you know, they showed him the brother shows him his future, and but his memory, you know, their memories are erased when they come out of there.
Right.
I think, like I said at the top of the show, I think that this is going to basically be her trials. Like Ahsoka either fails here or emerges as a Jedi Master.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is an apparition of, you know, from, you know, completely created by the Force. I don't know if it's something malevolent. I don't think it's Anakin. I don't think it's like a living version of Anakin. Now, maybe in the world between worlds, a Force ghost can appear more whole.
Yeah.
And it could be a version of Anakin that's going to challenge her. The thing that really makes me wonder, it's the notes, it's the first part of the phrase of the Imperial March.
Yes, and it like Vader's theme.
Yeah,
you know, it literally says Vader's theme plays, you know, in parentheses.
But like, I don't think Anakin is in the world between worlds.
Right.
At least not a living version of Anakin. I think that's potentially really destructive to the lore. You know, it could be explained, but I don't think that's where it's going. I think we saw Kanan's trial when he's knighted, in his fight with the temple guard. We see Luke's challenge in the tree on Dagobah. And that's really more where I'm leaning here. I go back to what, you know, she's going into this place, and, you know, Luke asks, what will I see? What will I find? And he says, only what you take with you. This is her burden, right? This is Anakin right before he falls. This is literally the burden she's carrying.
Right. So
I think that there's a very, very strong chance that this is going to be a trial similar to Luke on Dagobah.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Now, whether she's really in the world between worlds, I don't know. I think she is, because I think at the end of the day, I think that, again, the world between worlds and hyperspace are interconnected things. Hyperspace is just, it's not going really, really fast. It's not warp speed. It's entering a subdimension of our own dimension and traveling really quickly between point A and point B. It's the same thing the world between worlds does.
Right.
There's a time element to the world between worlds, but
or maybe there's a time element to hyperspace too.
Well, you know, we've been getting this at the beginning of the show. We got this Thrawn's calling to me across time and space. So we don't really know. It's going to take some further explanation to get us there. And yeah, Amanda, I do agree. I think that's really where I'm leaning. And whether it's Anakin's Force ghost or whether it's the Force using Anakin's appearance, that's what I'm leaning towards. But I also think I think that this is how she gets to this other galaxy.
Yeah.
So I mean, what do you think? I mean, there's only two ways to go, right? So either the Purgle take them, so they get there the ancient way. Force users were able to follow the Purgle,
right,
to traverse these distances. That's the first human hyperspace travel, is really following the Force users following the Purgle. Yeah, Nick, that does make sense. So Nick says, I think the world between worlds are doorways to the lives of Force users, the nexus point where the living Force flows to the cosmic Force. Maybe so. I mean, it's all speculation, but I do think so. The only way for Ahsoka to follow at this point is either the Purgle, but we also know it's a great distance, and so they did have to build a faster ship to get there quickly. Right. I think Ahsoka is going to get there through the World Between Worlds.
Mm-hmm.
However this plays out, I mean, I think knowing how Filoni feels about this character, I think that we will sort of see Ahsoka reascend to that white wizard level character when she comes out of whatever has been put before her here.
Yeah, there's something just we'll see Ahsoka the White.
Yeah, 100%. I think that given the opportunity to show us instead of just having Ahsoka show up as Ahsoka the White, the way Rebels ended, to show her maybe reascend to that level is maybe what we're going to witness here. We know that's the comparison that Filoni has been drawing for a long time to Ahsoka is Gandalf. And yeah, I think that's what we're going to see coming out the other side here. Whatever the trial she's got to face here in the World Between Worlds is.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's lots of good guesses going on. But yeah, it's definitely. And so initially I was like, oh, it's a World Between Worlds. And I was like, maybe it's not. I mean, so because it definitely,
I think it is. We know there was a doorway.
It seems to be.
Yeah.
But it doesn't look exactly like it.
Nick says Ahsoka's going to ride the Purgle like a sandworm in Dune.
As she should.
Yeah, I don't know if that'll work through space, but maybe.
Yeah.
But when you look at it, like these creatures, the Purgle were the inspiration for hyperspace travel, right? So, but even when you go back and look at the Loth Wolves, they're using something like hyperspace or the World Between Worlds to travel from one side of Lothal to the other instantaneously.
Yeah.
So there is some connectivity between hyperspace and the World Between Worlds.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it'll be interesting. I just think it's really picking up.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited to see where it's going.
I think episode 5 is, I think we're in for a wild ride. Real quick though, before we kind of wrap up, I'm thoroughly enjoying this. I enjoy the lore, I enjoy the world building, but what about for people who haven't watched Rebels? Because that's kind of one of the accusations that kind of keeps getting leveled.
I mean, I still think it's an interesting, and I think you could still enjoy the story if you haven't watched Rebels. I think they do a pretty good job with character introductions. It could just be a cold introduction.
Well, and even the World Between Worlds, I kind of feel like this is something like it is the World Between Worlds. And yes, if you've seen Rebels, that means something to you.
Yeah.
But this is at this point, a totally different use of the World Between Worlds.
Yeah.
That none of us are familiar with. So I kind of feel like it doesn't matter if you've seen Rebels or not, you're along for the same ride here.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I mean, Ro, that's possible. The craziness that will start happening, it may lose people in its weirdness. And that's certainly possible. And this is kind of the line where there's kind of this dividing line between the sci-fi aspects of this fantasy adventure and the purely fantasy aspects.
I mean, let's not kid ourselves. The original movie was pretty weird.
Yeah.
Everybody was just like, have you read this goofy thing? That was kind of the consensus among the actors.
Well, yeah, and it was sort of the consensus among the critics early too. Nobody expected it to become this, phenomenon that it did. And so, yes, it was always a little weird. And if anybody has read at least what George says his ideas for a sequel trilogy were, it was going to be way weirder than this.
Yeah.
Like George was fixing to get real out there with it. But yeah, I mean, I think that if you've seen Rebels, that there are certainly things here that are going to stand out to you more, or things that you're going to get excited about that people that haven't seen Rebels
Yep.
are going to, are going to understand. But at the same time, like I feel like, and of course, this is coming totally from the perspective of someone who has watched Clone Wars and Rebels.
Right.
I don't feel like you have to have seen those stories to keep up here.
Yeah.
Because we don't understand, we don't know what's happening either. Like we're getting we have hints because what we've seen before, but we don't necessarily know what's happening either.
Yeah. Yep. I think it's about to get even better. I mean, I've really enjoyed the show, and I think it's just continuing, we'll have to see how it ends, but so far it's just continuing to get better.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see where it's going. I think it's going to be a pretty wild ride. I don't know that it's going to tell us everything. I think that it's still sort of this adventure towards a movie.
Right.
And especially now with everything being shut down, like if there was intentions for a second season before the movie, like I don't even know if that happens anymore. Like it depends on how they decide to push everything back. I mean, we'll just have to see. But
yeah,
I'm excited about where it's going. People certainly might, as Ro suggested, check out as it gets weirder. But that's the thing. Like, I'm appreciative of the fact that they're letting this fantasy story be a fantasy story.
Yeah. I agree.
I like the sci-fi elements, but at the end of the day, it's not truly science fiction.
Right.
Which is weird. We've talked about that at length. It has influenced more science fiction than pretty much anything else that's ever been put on the big screen.
Except Star Trek.
Except for Star Trek. But
Star Trek turned.
But I mean, it has had a heavy influence on science fiction.
That's true.
But it's at the end of the day, it's really not.
Yeah.
Which is why people get all upset. That's not how science works. It's like, well, it's a fantasy world. So,
right. Yeah.
Lord of the Rings isn't how the real world works either.
It's not usually.
But I think that's probably as good a place as any to wrap up. We'll be back next week to talk about episode 5. We will probably do a Tuesday night immediate reaction like I did a week ago. I was sick this week and didn't figure anybody wanted to just watch me blow my nose for 30 minutes.
Nope.
So we didn't do that.
Fun as that sounds.
I do think we'll be back next week to do that again. So
awesome.
Any final thoughts before we wrap up, or any final thoughts from the chat? Thank you, Nicole, for joining.
Yay. Hello, goodbye.
But
yeah, I think I'm just really curious to see where it goes. And honestly, that's kind of how I felt about this show from the beginning. It was like, I didn't really go into it with a lot of expectations. I just mostly was hoping they would tell a good story, and so far they have. They are delivering a lot better than. That's the same thing I said about Kenobi, and they did not keep me quite as happy as I wanted to on that one. But
no, the writing's tighter here.
And I'm in the score. I'm really enjoying the score too. So I'm enjoying Kevin Kiner's music.
Yeah, that's one thing we haven't touched on that much. And maybe when the season's over, we'll just come back and do a whole episode on Kiner's score, because it has been absolutely top notch. And Kiner just needs to be doing the scores on way more Star Wars stuff other than just the Filoni stuff.
Yeah.
Like I feel like he's got a better grip on John Williams themes than anybody else.
Yeah, definitely good.
He's really good at interweaving pieces while also developing new themes. He's not just using John Williams themes. And when the few times over the course of Rebels that he chose those moments really, really well to just go to a full blown John Williams theme.
Right.
But he weaves in those little pieces of Leia's theme. Not in this, but in Rebels, he used that a few times. And so yeah, at some point, there's so much to talk about with the episodes. It's hard to spend a whole lot of time talking about the music. But it's probably worth coming back to at the end of the season because it really has been very good. I mean, I just kind of feel like Kevin Kiner ought to be scoring Star Wars movies. Like that. That should be, he should be the main guy scoring Star Wars movies.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, I'm not ready to say, oh, he's John Williams. He's the next John Williams, because like I don't know who the next John Williams is, or if there'll ever be a next John Williams.
Right. But we like him.
But I do like him, and I like the way he understands. I like the way he just has a good understanding of the use of the themes.
And they've also done some really different things in the theme for Ahsoka. Really different than previous Star Wars.
I don't know who all. Do you talk about the credit theme that runs at the end, or I don't know. That was several people I think like scored that together, and I can't remember who all was involved with that. But I'd have to go. Well, Kiner was involved, but I think there were a couple of other people involved with the creation of that piece.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll revisit that. And since it doesn't look like anybody really has any final thoughts in the chat, we will go ahead and wrap it up for the night, since we're about an hour and 20 minutes in here.
Yeah, indeed.
I don't know how I thought I was going to keep that to an hour.
I don't know.
But as we wrap up, well, it was this. I'm sorry. I drank a Red Bull as we were starting. I thought I'll be lucky.
I'm about to fall over.
Marisha's like swatting me here, like wrap it up. Like y'all can't see that, but Marisha's been trying to get me to wrap it up for about 15 minutes now. So
okay, so Marisha got a new job that makes her get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and Marisha is not a 6 o'clock in the morning type of girl. Marisha is a 9 o'clock in the morning type of girl. And everyone else in my house is still on typical Marisha schedule. And so, going to bed at 9 o'clock is a little difficult whenever everybody else is still awake. That stuff. So anyway, it's been real.
Yeah. So, we will wrap up there. More episodes next week. I intend to not be sick anymore. So
it'll be great.
So I'll
have had more sleep.
And I'll just tell you, just subscribe and hit that notification bell, because I don't always give warnings before I go live.
That's true. He's bad like that.
Well, I can plan ahead for only so much stuff in a week.
It's true.
And the rest of it just happens when I feel like it ought to happen.
That's fair.
Kind of like a wizard.
Wizard is never late, nor is he early.
That's correct.
Andrew is frequently late. He's not like a wizard that way.
I'm the one that's late.
Yes. So I did not say that I was never late. I just said that you were frequently late.
So before we wrap up, I do want to mention it is 7. We'll just call it 7:30 Central Time. So in 30 minutes at 8 o'clock Central, the Scarif Scuttlebutt podcast will have a episode going up. It is Rose. Oh goodness, I'm going to forget his interview with Kai Patterson. Is that right? I
think so. Seems right.
Let me double check, make sure I'm giving correct information.
Interview with who is it? Roe. Interview with Roe.
Yes. So Roe's interview with Kai Patterson.
Yes.
Will be up in 30 minutes on the Scarif Scuttlebutt channel. So definitely flip over there and check that out. Big thank you to everybody that joined us in the chat. Nicole, Amanda, Nick, Roe. I think Andrew was here for a few minutes. I really thought that I saw. Did I see you, Baldo, pop through here for a moment? Yep. Nick. If I didn't already say Nick, I can say Nick twice because he's here more than most.
Yeah, we saw Michelle for a few minutes.
Michelle was here briefly. Anybody else? There was somebody else that came through, but I can't remember. Oh, Isaac. Isaac popped through for a moment. So we had a few new faces in the chat. Mostly it was kind of at an odd time, a little early on a Friday night. So we had a lot of people coming and going, but thank you to everybody that popped in. Marisha, is there anywhere people can find you online? Or are you just not doing that these days? No.
Do that these days.
All right. So
ow, you pinched me with your spinny chair.
My spinny chair. I'm very sorry. I pinched you with my spinny chair, but let me. I'm scared to look. Thank you, Amanda.
Yeah.
So I want to throw this up here for just a minute because you can find our podcast as well as all of the rest of the Red 5 podcast network at Red 5 Network on Twitter, or check out bio.link/Red5 for all of the Red 5 podcasts. You can find us at crew_podcast, that's CRU_podcast on Twitter. You can also find me at sci_fictionary on Twitter, or you can drop us a line at the sciencefictionary@gmail.com. Anything else? Anything before we wrap up?
May the force be with you.
Goodbye. May the force be with you.
This podcast is a member of the Red 5 Network. For more Red 5 Network podcasts and content creators, visit bio.link/Red5.